Personal Magnetism, Psychic Influence, Thought Force, Concentration, Willpower, and Practical Mental Science by William Walker Atkinson, LLD. This is the next book I'm bringing to you in this video. The author attempts, in my opinion, to provide an arsenal of exercises with some practical explanations of their benefits to the reader who is seeking to overcome handicaps that, under current circumstances, may seem impossible to navigate out of. The title may lend to a flair of occultism for those that have not delved into these esoteric concepts, but given the advancement of our science today, for those that keep up with current advancement in such fields of mind and metaphysic concepts, this content may not be as profound as they wish. Yet, if anyone is seeking to gain more personal development, either in concentration, in willpower, or even in poise, for you, there are several golden nuggets, if you have eyes to see and ears to hear. Along with the desire to dedicate but 15 minutes a day for your own self-mastery. Welcome, I am Daisy, your hostess. We will navigate through this book as a 3-part video series, and the first few chapters will provide insights into the benefits of breathing, which are going to be in this video, and also why your own self-inquiry is important, as well as the existence of personal magnetism. Of course, he explained it in the most lay term as possible that allows the self-evident truth of it be revealed. And most important, in my opinion, is his recommendation to not accept nothing that you cannot demonstrate. I believe that there are way too many people that talk a big talk, but such talk is not evident in the way they live their life. If you want to know a person, just observe them for a bit, and you will know the truth of it, unless you choose to be like the masses of people in the Emperor's New Clothes. Which are you? Please leave me a comment, let me know you are here, and let me know what grabbed your attention from these first few chapters. I now turn the page. Long title: A Series of Lessons in Personal Magnetism, Psychic Influence, Thought Force, Concentration, Willpower, and Practical Mental Science by William Walker Atkinson. A quote by Thomas L. Harris in Lyrics of a Golden Age. The nearer to the practical men keep, the less they deal in vague and abstract things, the less they deal in huge, mysterious words. The mightier is their power. The simple peasant who observes the truth and from the fact deduces principle adds solid treasure to the public wealth. The theorist who dreams a rainbow dream and calls hypothesis philosophy at best is but a paper financier who palms his specious promises for gold. Facts are the basis of philosophy. Philosophy, the harmony of facts. End quote. Lesson 1. The majority of writers upon this subject have devoted nearly all their efforts, as well as their space, to proving, first, that personal magnetism really existed, and secondly, that the phenomenon was best accounted for by some pet theory of their own. Some attribute the power of influencing men to the use of a vegetarian diet, notwithstanding the fact that some of the most magnetic individuals make graveyards of their stomachs. Others insist that in celibacy and abstinence from sexual intercourse may be found the secret, notwithstanding the fact that the majority of magnetic individuals do not differ in their sexual customs from their less magnetic brothers. Others hold that the magnetic force abounds in the air around us, and that, therefore, deep breathing will enable us to absorb great quantities of the vital fluid, charging ourselves with the force in the manner of the storage battery, and so on, each with his little pet theory. Now, I have no fault to find with the systems above mentioned. Although not a strict vegetarian, I sympathize with those of that belief. Although not leading a life of celibacy, I see much good in the doctrine of continence, and there can be no two opinions as to the merits of chastity. Whilst not accepting the theory of the absorption of magnetic force from the Earth's atmosphere, I am a firm advocate of and believer in deep breathing, and believe that if the same was universally practiced, much sickness and physical weakness would disappear from the earth. All these things are good, but a little reflection will show anyone that they are not the prime factors in the production of the quality known as personal magnetism. The writers on the subject usually conclude by telling their readers of the wonderful possibilities open to anyone who can acquire this power and learn how to use it. They, however, say little or nothing of how this force may be acquired, that is, beyond stating their theories. They deliver discourses, but do not instruct. They are preachers, not teachers. They dwell upon theories and neglect facts. The real progress in this branch of scientific research has been made not by writers or theorists, but by a few earnest investigators who have conducted numberless experiments and have explored every avenue of information, and who have brought this wonderful subject out of the realms of mere speculation and placed it upon a scientific basis. The writer has been a close student and investigator of this subject for many years, and the present work is an attempt to give to his students some of the fundamental principles derived from the investigations and practical experiments of himself and his co-workers in this field. Our lessons, therefore, will be confined, so far as is possible, to statements of proven facts and practical instruction, touching upon theory only when absolutely necessary. In my opinion, I would insult your intelligence if I were to present to you an elaborate argument, the purpose of which would be an attempt to prove the existence of that wonderful force, latent in man, developed by the few, but possible of acquirement by all. That mysterious quality called, for want of a better name, personal magnetism. To set out to prove its existence would be akin to an attempt to convince the average intelligent man of the fact that the magnet influences the needle, that the X-rays penetrate the body of man or still more solid object, that a message can be conveyed by electricity along a beam of light or even by wireless telegraphy through the air without the need of any other medium. Every intelligent person is aware of the existence of the above-mentioned phenomena and does not need to have the same demonstrated to him. If he is interested in the subject at all, he wishes to be taught how to operate these forces so that he may be able to reproduce the experiments himself. This is equally true of the student of personal magnetism. He has long since learned that such a force exists. He sees it around him every day and knows of the wonders that are accomplished by its aid. He possibly is aware that he has developed the force to a certain degree, and what he wants, in any event, is to become acquainted with the means whereby he can fully develop and intelligently use the force latent within him. I therefore shall make no attempt to demonstrate the existence of this force, believing it to be self-evident. I also intend to avoid a tiresome discussion of the numerous theories which have been advanced to account for the phenomena of personal magnetism. I have no pet theory to advance. I will endeavor to teach you how to obtain results, and you can then read up on the subject of theories or possibly formulate a new theory of your own. I will state briefly my own conception of the cause underlying the phenomena alluded to in this work, but I shall not attempt to force my views upon you. You are at liberty to accept or reject any theory, as the result in no way depends upon any special form of belief. Many of those who have obtained the best results have discarded one theory after another, and now say that they do not attempt to explain the real cause underlying the results, being content to work on without a dogmatic theory so long as they know how to obtain the results. With this explanation, I will leave the land of theory and enter into the realm of practice, and will endeavor to so instruct you along the lines of the development and use of this mighty force, that you may reproduce the results already obtained by others, and perhaps may become investigators and leaders in the work of blazing the way through the woods of superstition and mystery with which the subject has been surrounded so long. I will ask you to accept nothing that you cannot prove to your own satisfaction by your own experiments after you have acquired a working knowledge of the subject. In our next lesson, we will take up the subject of the nature of the force. Lesson 2. The nature of the force. To the minds of most people, the term personal magnetism conveys the idea of a current radiating from the person of the magnetic individual, drawing to him all those things within the radius of his magnetic force. This idea, whilst on the whole erroneous, still contains within it the germ of the real truth. There is a current of attracting force radiating from man, but it is not a magnetic force insofar as the term magnetism implies some connection with the lodestone or electricity. The human magnetic current, whilst bearing some resemblance to these two familiar forces in its effects, has no real connection with them so far as is concerned its origin or intrinsic nature. That which we call personal magnetism is the subtle current of thought waves, or thought vibrations, projected from the human mind. Every thought created by our minds is a force of greater or lesser intensity, varying in strength according to the impetus imparted to it at the time of its creation. When we think, we send from us a subtle current which travels along like a ray of light and has its influence on the minds of others who are often far removed from us by space. A forceful thought will go on its errand charged with a mighty power, and will often beat down the instinctive resistance of the minds of others to outside impressions, whilst a weak thought will be unable to obtain an entrance to the mental castle of another, unless that castle be but poorly guarded. Repeated thoughts along the same lines, sent one after the other, will often effect an entrance where a single thought wave, although much stronger, will be repulsed. It is an exhibition of a physical law in the physical world, and exemplifies the old saying about steady dripping wearing away a stone. We all are influenced much more than we are aware by the thoughts of others. I do not mean by their opinions, but by their thoughts. A great writer on the subject very truly says, thoughts are things. They are things, and most powerful things at that. Unless we understand this fact, we are at the mercy of a mighty force, of whose nature we know nothing, and whose very existence many of us deny. On the other hand, if we understand the nature and laws governing this wonderful force, we can master it and render it our instrument and assistant. Every thought created by us, weak or strong, good or bad, healthy or unhealthy, sends out its vibratory waves, which affect, to a greater or lesser extent, all with whom we come in contact, or who may come within the radius of our thought vibrations. Thought waves are like the ripples on a pond caused by the casting in of a pebble. They move in constantly widening circles radiating from a central point. Of course, if an impulse projects the thought waves forcibly toward a certain object, its force will be felt more strongly at that point. Besides affecting others, our thoughts affect us, not only temporarily but permanently. We are what we think ourselves into being. The biblical statement that, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, is literally correct. We are all creatures of our own mental creating. You know how easy it is to think yourself into a blue state of mind, or the reverse, but you do not realize that repeated thought upon a certain line will manifest itself not only in character, which it certainly does, but also in the physical appearance of the thinker. This is a demonstrable fact, and you have to but look around you to realize it. You have noticed how a man's occupation shows itself in his appearance and general character. What do you suppose occasions this phenomena? Nothing more nor less than that thought. If you ever have changed your occupation, your general character and appearance kept pace with your changed habits of thought. Your new occupation brought out a new train of thought, and thoughts take form in action. You may never have taken this view of the matter, but it is true nevertheless, and you may find ample proof of its correctness by merely looking around you. A man who thinks energy manifests energy. The man who thinks courage manifests courage. The man who thinks I can and I will gets there, while the I can't man gets left. You know that to be true. Now, what causes the difference? Thought. Just plain everyday thinking, that's all. Of course, the action follows the thought. But why? Just because it cannot help itself, action follows as the natural result of vigorous thinking. You think in earnest and action does the rest. Thought is the greatest thing in the world. If you do not know it now, you will before you are through with this course of lessons. You may say that this is no new thing to you, that you knew all about making up your mind and all that sort of thing long ago. Then why did you not put into practice and make something of yourself? I will tell you the trouble. You thought, I can't, instead of I can. Now, I'm going to change that I can't into a big I can and a bigger I will. That is what I'm here for, and I intend to make you over before I'm through with you. I suppose that you thought I would give you an elaborate, transcendental discourse on things away up in the clouds, and hoped that I would tell you how to charge yourself up with a lot of magnetism so that you would be able to light up the gas with the tips of your fingers or draw everybody to you like a piece of steel to a magnet. Now, didn't you? Well, I'm not. But I intend to tell you how you can generate in yourself a force, compared with which magnetism is weak. A force that will make a man of you, a force that will make you realize the I am within you. A power that will enable you to be a man of strong personal qualities, a man of influence, a successful man. I will tell you how you can acquire that which you have been calling personal magnetism, providing you will start at it in earnest. It is worth working for, and when you feel your new strength developing within you, you would not exchange your newfound knowledge for a fortune. Why, you feel a little stronger already, don't you? Of course you do. I never have talked 5 minutes to a class of students about I can and I will, and about the I am within them without their throwing back their shoulders, raising their heads, taking a long breath, and looking me square in the eyes as a man or woman should. It was thought manifesting itself in action. Do you see the point? I had planted the little seed of self-knowledge, and it had begun to sprout. Before I conclude this lesson, I wish to direct your attention to one other very important thing about thought, and that is the inductive power of thought. Pay attention to this, please, as it is of the highest importance. Avoiding all attempts at a scientific explanation and keeping away from technical terms, I will state the matter concisely thus. Thoughts attract like thoughts. The good thoughts attracts other good thoughts. The bad thoughts, the bad. Thoughts of strength, likewise. Thoughts of discouragement and doubt follow the rule, and so on through the entire gamut of thoughts. Your thought attracts to it the corresponding thoughts of others and increases your stock of that particular kind of thought. Do you see the point? Think fear thoughts, and you draw to yourself all the fear thought in that neighborhood. The harder you think it, the greater supply of undesirable thought flocks to you. Think, I am fearless, and all the courageous thought force within your radius will move towards you and will aid you. Try it. That is, try the latter. Don't think fear thoughts. Do you know that fear and its oldest child, worry, are at the bottom of more misery, more unhappiness, more failures than anything else in the world? Fear and hate are the parents of all the vile thoughts. I will go into this matter with you at greater length in subsequent lessons, but let me urge you now, with all the earnestness of which I am capable, to tear out these vile weeds, fear and hate. Tear them out by the roots. They spoil the whole garden and breed hosts of other weeds, such as worry, doubt, timidity, lack of self-respect, jealousy, spite, malice, envy, slander, and morbid ideas. I'm not trying to preach to you a sermon, but I know that these vile thoughts are hindering your progress, and you will realize it too if you will stop to think for a moment. Open the blinds and let the pure sunshine of bright, cheerful, and happy thoughts pour in, and the microbes of doubt and despair and failure will leave and seek more congenial quarters. If you were my dearest friend, and I knew that this message would be my last on earth, I would shout to you as loud as my vocal organs would permit, let go of fear and hate thoughts. Lesson 3. How thought force can aid you. I am addressing you upon the supposition that you are desirous of developing the forces within you for the purpose of attaining success. Success in life depends very materially upon the possession of the quality of attracting and influencing our fellow men. No matter what other qualities you may possess, you are handicapped by a lack of that subtle force which we are in the habit of calling personal magnetism. Look around you, and you will see that nearly every man who has arrived is possessed of the ability to attract, persuade, influence, or control his fellows. They are all what is known as strong men. There are a few exceptions to this great rule, and these exceptions only go to prove the rule itself. These exceptions are usually found among men who have demonstrated their success along lines of art, scientific research, invention, literary work, etc., and it will readily be seen that their success, from the very nature of things, depends more upon a close, concentrated, plodding research or effort, rather than upon push, energy, force, and knowledge of human nature, or ability to handle men. These men are successful in their own lines of endeavor, but, as a rule, the results of their labor are reaped by others of a more worldly turn of mind. If these burners of midnight oil meet with financial success, it is because some more positive man has taken charge of the business end of their work and pushed it through, in which case the said positive man usually reaps the lion's share. And this being the true state of affairs, I am justified in regarding success as meaning the attaining of financial reward, and that must depend largely upon the personal magnetism of the seeker after success. The inventor, student, writer, and scientist can be greatly benefited by an understanding of the intelligent use of the powers of mental control, but to the men among men remains the privilege of securing the best results of that wonderful power, for it brings him not only success, but also its material manifestation, money. Money, regarded as mere money, is not a high ideal, but regarded as the means of surrounding ourselves with the best things of life, it becomes no unworthy goal for human endeavor. I, therefore, feel justified in treating it as the end to be sought after. To repeat, success in life depends largely upon our ability to interest, attract, influence, and control our fellow men. I do not think that you will require any argument upon that point, that is, if you have had any acquaintance whatever with the world of men and affairs. The next thing is to learn how this wonderful and valuable power may be acquired. The answer is by the mastery of the law of mental control. That is the secret of not only personal magnetism, but also of success in life and of happiness as well. To the man or woman who masters this law, the world is an oyster to be opened and enjoyed in comfort. Even he who lacks the application and perseverance to follow up the exercises for the development of this latent powers will be stronger and more positive from a mere acquaintance with the subject. This is all very well, you say, but tell us how we may develop this power. That is just what I'm doing now. I'm leading you up to an understanding of the theory by easy steps. I wish the idea to unfold naturally so as to avoid giving you mental dyspepsia. Now, for a summing up of the general theory before I take up the subject in detail. I have told you that the power of thought could be used in a number of ways in the direction of influencing men and gaining success. I have given you an idea of how thought operates in the direction named. Before proceeding to our next lesson, I think it well to again call your attention to the several different ways in which thought can aid you in attaining success through the influence of men. Thought will aid you in the following manner. 1. By the use of your positive thought force in the direction of directly influencing men in person through the law of suggestion. By this I mean that you will be able to interest men in your schemes and plans, enlist their aid, secure their patronage, and influence them generally. This faculty, natural to some men, can be acquired by any man or woman who has the willpower and perseverance to develop it within them. Most students of the subject are desirous of acquiring knowledge of this branch of mental control before the other phases of the subject, and I therefore will take it up in my next lesson. 2. By the power of direct thought, vibrations set in motion by your mind, which will exert a powerful effect upon the minds of others. Unless they understand the secret of guarding against these forces and rendering themselves positive to others, an understanding of this law will also enable you to present a positive mental attitude toward the thought waves emanating from the minds of others. 3. By the power of adductive qualities of thought, which works upon the theory of like attracts like. By holding certain thoughts constantly in your mind, you attract to you thoughts and influences of like nature, from the great body of thought surrounding us, unseen but all-powerful. This power is one of the strongest forces in nature, and if properly used, will attract assistance from the most unexpected quarters. Thoughts are things, and possess a wonderful power of attracting to themselves other thought waves of the same vibratory pitch and quality. 4. By the power of thought in shaping your character and temperament to meet the requirements of your organization. You lack certain qualities needful for your success. You know it as well, if not better, than anyone else, but you have been deluded by a belief that these shortcomings were a part of you and that the leopard cannot change his spots. To you, the study of the law of mental control comes as a mighty ally. For you can overcome these deficiencies and can acquire new characteristics and qualities, as well as learning how to strengthen those which you have already. I will endeavor to start you upon the right road by this series of lessons. I will point out the way for you, but you must do the work yourself. Every man must work out his own salvation, in this study as in every other branch of human endeavor. Lesson 4. Direct Psychic Influence. In this and the next lesson, I will endeavor to make plain to you the process whereby an individual exerts an influence over his fellow men in a personal interview and interests them in his schemes and plans, enlists their aid and support, secures their patronage, and influences them generally. We all know men who are able to accomplish these results, and yet we content ourselves with wondering at their strange power without endeavoring to acquire it. The art of influencing men or women whilst we are in their presence of necessity, includes the other several methods of mental influence mentioned in the preceding lessons, and partakes of the nature of each. It is difficult to speak intelligently of this phase of mental influence without covering the entire ground intended to be explained in subsequent lessons. I must content myself with a general reference to these several different branches of the subject, as you will meet them later on, at which time I will take them up at a greater length. I would suggest that after completing this series of lessons, you take up this particular lesson again and go over it carefully a second time. You will have a much clearer idea of the subject then, and many things which now seem more or less vague and unsatisfactory will appear clear and easily understood. In influencing men who meet face to face, we affect them in a number of ways, which may be roughly summed up in 3 forms. 1. By direct suggestion through the voice, manner, and appearance and eye. This includes not only voluntary suggestion on our part, but also the suggestion made involuntary by every earnest man. 2. By thought waves directed to the other person by a voluntary effort of our mind. 3. By the adductive quality of thought resulting from the process of controlled thought of which I spoke in the preceding lesson. This force, once generated, operates involuntarily and constitutes the most striking phase of what we call personal magnetism. In this lesson, I shall confine myself to the first mentioned form of personal influence and will take up the succeeding forms in subsequent lessons. It is a most difficult task to give an intelligent, comprehensive idea of the subject of suggestion in the limited space at my disposal. If the student has acquainted himself with the principles underlying hypnotism or hypnotic suggestion, he will readily understand just what I mean when I say suggestion. To those who have not had this advantage, I will say that a suggestion is an impression consciously or unconsciously received through any of our senses. We are constantly accepting or rejecting suggestions, the acceptance or rejection depending upon the degree of suggestibility in ourselves, the degree being caused by the development or cultivation of the non-receptive qualities of the mind. We cannot attempt to go deeply into the subject of what is known as the dual mind in man, which has been variously designated as the objective and subjective minds, the voluntary and involuntary minds, the conscious and subconscious minds, etc. If the student is desirous of acquainting himself fully with this subject, I would suggest that he take up some good work on hypnotism or hypnotic suggestion. There are several good books on this subject, but I would suggest the works of Dr. Herbert A. Parkin as best fitted for this purpose. In order that the student may grasp the idea that I wish to convey regarding the use of suggestion as a means of exerting personal influence, I would have him understand that the mind has 2 general functions, which, following the terms used by me in my other writings, are known as the active function and the passive function, respectively. The active function does the voluntary, volitional thinking and also manifests what we call willpower. It is the function used frequently by the active, energetic, vigorous, wide-awake man in his busy moments. The passive function does the instinctive, automatic, involuntary thinking, exhibiting no willpower and manifesting on entirely contrary lines from the active function. The passive function is a most valuable servant of man and really performs the greater part of his mental work, doing all the drudgery and fulfilling its allotted tasks without receiving praise or thanks. It works uncomplainingly and apparently without an effort, and never seems to tire. The active function, on the other hand, works only at the prompting of the will and uses up a greater amount of nervous force than its passive brother. It does the energetic, active work of the mind and tires after a great deal of effort and cries out for rest. You are conscious of more or less effort when you employ the active function, but not so when you use the easygoing, faithful, good-natured passive function. I think that you understand the distinctive features of these two functions from this brief explanation. Some persons do nearly all their thinking along passive lines. Such persons find it too much to ask to do their own thinking and prefer the ready-made thoughts of others to that of their own production. They are practically human sheep. They are very credulous and will accept almost any statement made to them in an earnest, positive manner. These people are very suggestible and are practically at the mercy of those who are more active mind. They find it hard to say no and are inclined to say yes if it is easier and requires less thinking. Others are not quite so suggestible, and some are scarcely suggestible at all at times, but the latter, when they relax and give their active functions a rest, are much more suggestible than at other times. To enable you to form a mental picture of the two functions for the purpose of carrying out the instructions given in this course, I will ask you to imagine a pair of twins who are associated as partners in a business enterprise. They look exactly alike, but have very different qualities, and each one is well fitted for the performance of the special duties which he has undertaken. They share equally in the profits and losses of the business. The passive brother attends to receiving goods, filling orders, packing goods, keeping the stock in order, etc., while the active brother attends to selling the goods, the general management of affairs, financiering, pushing things along, and in short, is the executive of the concern and its active spirit. When it comes to the buying of goods, however, both brothers take a hand. The passive brother is a good-natured, easygoing, dead easy sort of fellow, a plodding, automatic, mechanical sort of man. He is somewhat set in his notions, rather superstitious and bigoted, but very credulous and apt to believing almost anything one may tell him, providing the new statement does not directly conflict with some of his preconceived notions. To get a radically new idea into his head, it is necessary to insinuate it to him by degrees. He is in the habit of deferring to the opinions of his brother when the latter is around, and in his brother's absence to the opinions of other people. He will be apt to grant you any favor or give you almost anything you ask, providing you make the request in a firm, confident manner. He is afraid of hurting your feelings by a refusal and will promise you anything to get rid of you and to avoid giving you a positive refusal. You can sell him almost anything if his brother is not watching, if you go about it right. All you have to do is to put on a bold, confident front and take things for granted. You know the type. The active brother, however, is a very different sort of fellow. He is a suspicious, watchful, wide awake, hard as nails sort of individual. There is no nonsense about him. He finds it necessary to keep a close watch on his passive brother in order that the interests of the firm do not suffer. The passive brother is always getting stuck by somebody or on something and really needs some sort of a guardian. And if the active fellow happens to take a nap or be too busy with his work or to keep an eye on the passive brother, something is sure to happen to the latter. The active partner, accordingly, is not inclined to allow you to meet the passive brother until he knows you pretty well or thinks that you have no designs on the easy fellow. He watches you carefully and inquires into your business and tries to find what you are up to before he will allow you to see the other partner. If he thinks that you have designs on the easy fellow, he will tell you that his easy brother is out, etc. Even if he allows you to see his brother, he will watch every motion and listen to every word, and in case he thinks that you are trying to play some sort of a game on the easy man, he will put his foot down on the scheme and call the deal off. He considers every proposition and accepts it, if reasonable, or rejects it if not. He grows less suspicious when he becomes accustomed to your presence and may even grow to have considerable confidence in you. He also may be entertained and amused, at which times he relaxes his vigilance and grows less suspicious. If his suspicions are once allayed, you may be able to get in a word with the other brother, in which case you have made a great advance. For the easy brother, once acquainted with you, will himself contrive to make the next meeting easier. He feels lonesome and chafes under the restraint imposed upon him by his brother, and when he once makes your acquaintance, he will be on the lookout for another chance to have a chat with you. The first step is the hardest. Please remember that the mind of every man or woman is a partnership composed of functions represented by two characters with which I have just endeavored to acquaint you. There is a difference, however, in firms. The passive partner is pretty much the same in all cases, although in some he manages to have his own way more, and in others he is kept still further in the background, the difference being caused by the degree of positiveness in the active partner. There is a great difference in these active partners. Some of them are splendid examples of prudence, watchfulness, and sagacity, whilst others possess these qualities in a lesser degree, and some are nearly as easy as their passive brothers. Some of them can be bulldozed, others coaxed, others flattered, and others tired out into relaxing their vigilance. Some of them get so interested in something that they do not notice that the visitor is getting well acquainted with the passive brother, and may even allow him to give an order for goods. Each one has his own peculiarities, his weaknesses. As a man is no stronger than his weakest point, the obvious rule is to find that weakest point and direct the attack right there. You will readily see that the main thing to be accomplished is to elude the vigilance of the active partner. There are many ways of doing this. The thing to do is to find out the best way. If one way does not work, try another. If you keep at it, you will win eventually. Faint heart never won fair lady. It can be done if it is gone about properly. It is done every day. It is easy with some and hard with others, but it can be done with all of these watchful partners if you will only keep pegging away at it. Never take no for an answer. Pursue the same plan in business that you would if you were courting the girl you loved. In the latter case, a no or two, or a dozen for that matter, would not count. Pursue the same tactics in your business and you will win the day. Fortune is feminine, you know, and possesses all of the characteristics of the sex. Suggestions gain force by repetition. A man may reject a proposition when first made, but upon hearing the same thing over and over again, he will get to believe it. No wonder you believe it yourself from the mere repetition of it, and why shouldn't he? Moreover, a suggestion may produce no apparent effect at the time it is given, but may be like a seed planted in fertile soil, which will have sprouted by the time you come again. By talking properly to the active partner and getting him interested, you have enabled the passive brother, actuated by curiosity of which he has a full share, to draw near and overhear your conversation. He will often think over the overhead words after you have gone, and the next time you come, he will manage to get an interview with you, in spite of his stern brother. Love laughs at locksmiths, and so does the passive fellow at his brother, sometimes. You should carry the above mental picture of the two functions of the mind, the active partner and his passive brother. With this picture in your mind, you will be able to direct your suggestions to the best advantage, and also to guard yourself against the suggestions of others. In influencing a man with whom you come in personal contact, you will not have to depend entirely upon the power of suggestion in overcoming the watchfulness of the active partner of his mind. You will be aided by two powerful allies: direct thought waves consciously projected by your mind and by the involuntary adductive qualities of thought. These powers can be highly developed by the exercises which will be given you during this course of lessons. You will also learn how to acquire characteristics calculated to aid you in making a good impression upon the active brother, who is apt to be impressed by external appearances. There's one thing which you must learn, however, and that is confidence and a belief in your ability to master this subject. It is like a boy learning to swim. The swimming power is inherent in every boy, but he doesn't believe it. As soon as he believes that he can swim, he swims. But so long as he believes that he can't, he cannot. He may improve in the art of swimming by practice, but he had the swimming power in him from the beginning, and all he needed was belief. You have within you the art of influencing others, but until you believe it and have confidence, you will find it hard work. You can do it, and have but to strike out. You can begin on easy exercises at first, but you must have confidence from the start. Some men discover this by accident and do not know the reason of their success. You know the reason now and can do as well and better than the man who has stumbled upon the truth. Lesson 5. In the preceding lesson, I compared the two functions of the mind of each individual to the two brothers, partners in a business enterprise. For the convenience of explanation, I will continue this illustration, which is quite applicable to the real state of affairs. This active partner is a particular old fellow and needs considerable humoring and careful handling. He is influenced to some extent by the conversation, appearance, manner, voice, eye, etc., and each active partner has his own taste and peculiarities, although there are some things which they all have in common. As to conversation, we should, if possible, ascertain what interests the old fellow. If you please him in this respect, he is apt to lose sight of his duties as guardian of his easy brother. You should therefore learn to talk to him about things in which he is interested, but do not make the mistake of talking too much. Give the old man a chance. You should talk until you get him well started on a favorite topic, and then you keep quiet. You should cultivate the art of listening, for it is one of the most valuable accomplishments in the world. Many a man or woman has risen to a high position simply by being a good listener. You may remember the old tale told of Thomas Carlyle. A visitor once called on him, and being a good listener and a student of human nature as well, managed to get him started talking on a favorite subject. Carlyle talked for over 3 hours without giving the visitor a chance to get in a word edgewise. When the caller at last rose to depart, Carlyle accompanied him to the door in a surprisingly good humor and bade him goodbye, saying, "Come again, we've had a most delightful conversation." Do you see the point? Listen attentively to the old active partner and act as if each of his words was a bright golden dollar, fresh from the mint, but do not fall under the influence of his spell. Pay earnest attention to what he says, but do not let his thoughts produce any real impression upon you, or else he will be selling goods to your passive partner. Keep yourself positive, not negative, for you will have a word to say to the easy brother after the old fellow becomes intoxicated with the exuberance of his own verbosity and relaxes his vigilance. By all means, cultivate the art of intelligent listening. As to appearance, I would advise you to avoid the two extremes of flashiness and dowdiness, respectively. Keep in the middle of the road. You should particularly avoid clothing calculated to attract special attention, either by its extreme style or the reverse. The apparel should be simple, neat, and clean. Do not wear a shabby hat or shoes, for these things are especially noticeable. A man with a good hat and neat, well-cleaned shoes may pass muster even with well-worn clothes if clean, whilst with a shabby hat or muddy or shabby shoes, the effect of even a fine suit of clothes is lost. Always wear clean linen. These things count. Eschew the use of strong perfumes. To most men, strong perfumes are an abomination. It is scarcely necessary to add that personal cleanliness is an important prerequisite for obtaining a favorable hearing with the majority of active partners, even though they be not so particular themselves. Your manners should be pleasant and cheerful, yet not frivolous. A certain degree of reserve is desirable. Your temper, of course, should be well under control. Anger is a sign of weakness, not strength, and the angry man is always placed at a disadvantage. You should be absolutely fearless, both physically and morally, the latter being the rarer quality. If you are quick-tempered or apt to give way to fear of misfortune or worry, you should pay particular attention to the lesson on character building and correct these defects. Your manner should convey the idea of self-respect, but you should likewise show a delicate consideration for the feelings, likes, and dislikes of others. If you lack the latter quality, you should cultivate it by all means, as it is of paramount importance in creating friends and in gaining the favor of active partners, the latter being only human in spite of their rough exteriors. If you will carry in your mind this thought, I act towards you as I would like you to act toward me, and make the thought take form in action, you will require this valuable quality. Cultivate a frank, open manner. Most people like it. Be earnest when you talk. It not only holds the attention of people to whom you're talking, but it is valuable aid to you in having your suggestions accepted, and besides, is an important factor in imparting force to your thought vibrations. Cultivate a firm, honest, manly handshake. Nobody likes to have thrust upon him a flabby, limp hand. You don't yourself. Do not forget this. If you have not the proper handshake, start to work and get it at once. Shake hands with everyone as if he were your best girl's millionaire father, and then look people square in the eye. I will have more to say about the power of the eye in the next lesson, but I wish to call your attention to it in connection with the hearty handshake. The two go together. Cultivate an agreeable tone of voice, avoiding a mumbling utterance on the one hand and a loud, boisterous tone on the other. An excellent rule is to pitch the voice to the tone of the party with whom you are conversing, providing always that you do not shout in order to keep pace with the other person. If the other man shouts, keep your own voice even and subdued, and he will soon drop to your pitch. This, by the way, is a good plan to adopt with a person who is excited and is attempting to give you a good tongue lashing. In such a case, keep your temper and see that your voice is subdued and steady, and you will find the voice of the other man or woman gradually dropping down to your pitch. As he lowers his voice, his temper subsides, and he feels ashamed, and you have won the day. Try it. There is much in the voice. A flexible, well-modulated voice is most pleasing, and wins many victories for its fortunate possessor. Let your voice express the shade of feeling which you wish to convey. This is the one of the most potent forms of suggestion. An expressive voice is one of the principal tools of the successful suggestionist. The student must not despair if he lacks some of the important requisites to success above mentioned. He should know that every one of these gifts is within his reach, if he will but take the trouble to acquire it. I explained this point fully in the lesson on character building. Another very important medium of influencing others, including our old active partner, is the I, the human I. Who does not know its power, and yet how few know how to acquire the secret of its use? One could write volumes upon its power as a weapon of offense and defense, and its aid in influencing men and the lower animals, and yet not begin to exhaust the subject. I will devote our next lesson to an explanation of the use of the eye as an influencing medium, how to acquire the magnetic gaze, and how to avoid the influence or the eyes of others. Lesson 6. The power of the eye. The eye is one of the most potent means of influencing others. It not only serves to hold the attention of the person to whom you are talking, thereby rendering it easier to impress your suggestions upon him, but it is also a power in itself, which when properly used is the means of impressing your will upon another. It attracts, fascinates, and holds spellbound the active partner and gives you a chance to talk with the easygoing brother. The eye of the man who has mastered the law of mental control is a powerful weapon. It conveys the strong mental vibrations direct to the mind of the other party at short range. You have heard of the power of the human eye over wild beasts and savages, and many of you have met with men who seemed to look clear through you and whose steady gaze was almost unbearable. I will give you a few exercises in our next lesson, which will aid you in acquiring what is known as the magnetic gaze, a most important acquisition for the student of personal influence. In this lesson, I will assume that you have already acquired the magnetic gaze. The proper use of the eye in interviews with other persons will enable you to exert an influence over them, something akin to fascination or hypnotic attraction. This is the result of strong mental vibrations conveyed at short range by means of the magnetic gaze of the trained eye. You, of course, will be governed by the circumstances of each particular case, and it is difficult to give you general directions applicable to all cases. You must adapt these general instructions to suit the emergencies of each particular case as it arises. One of the most important things about the beginning of an interview is that you should look the other person squarely in the eye with a firm, steady, magnetic gaze. You need not stare at him, but your gaze must be steady and firm and indicative of a strong willpower and concentration. During the conversation, you may change the direction of your gaze, but whenever you make a proposition, statement, or request, or whenever you wish to impress him strongly, you must direct a firm, steady, magnetic gaze towards him, looking him straight in the eye. This is highly important and must not be neglected. When you are talking business, have an earnest, determined look or manner and hold the other man's attention. If you have a request to make it in a clear, dignified, earnest manner, keeping your eyes fixed upon his, and willing at the same time that he will do as you say. By all means, prevent him from looking away from you at this point. You must hold his attention at all hazards. If you have his whole attention, the active brother will be too much engrossed to bother you about his easy brother, and the latter will draw near and hear what you are saying. If the other party avoids your gaze, you can sometimes regain his attention by looking away yourself, watching him all the time out of the corner of your eye, and as soon as he finds that you are looking the other way, he will be apt to steal a glance at you. You must watch for this stolen glance, and the moment you find his eye turned towards your face, you must quickly turn your eye and give him a quick, sharp, determined look, keeping your eyes fastened upon his and holding his look by an effort of the will. Right here is a good point for you to drive in your little nail. You have him at a disadvantage, and the psychological moment has arrived for driving in a strong suggestion. If you cannot get him to look at you in the way above mentioned, it is a very good plan to have something to show him. A sample, picture, or some other object appertaining to your business. You will find that after he looks at the object shown him, he will raise his eyes to yours. He will do this every time, and you must be ready for him with a firm, magnetic gaze and a strong suggestion. If you can keep a man's attention and can manage to look squarely at him during the interview, you will surely influence him to a greater or lesser extent unless he is well posted on this subject, in which case it will be very difficult to influence him by direct means. Very few people, however, possess this knowledge, and you need not figure that element into the ordinary calculation. You may find that the other man will begin to feel that you are gaining some sort of influence over him, and he may, in self-defense, endeavor to terminate the interview. This you must not permit, for you have gained an influence and you must follow it up. Do not leave him until you get what you came for. In this connection, it may be well to suggest to you that, inasmuch as it is difficult for anyone to reason or deliberate clearly whilst they are under the influence of the magnetic gaze of another, it will be well for you to guard yourself against the use of this power at the hands of anyone else possessing the secret. You must preserve a positive mental attitude when you find that someone is trying to influence you, and hold the thought firmly that you are strong and beyond such influence. This mental attitude will protect you, and you must, of course, reverse the instructions given you for influencing others. If a man is endeavoring to interest you in a proposition, do not allow him to hold your gaze uninterruptedly during the conversation. You may, without seeming to avoid his gaze, look away reflectively at intervals in an easy way. This will give you time to reflect a little and maintain your balance. When he makes you a proposition, look away from him in a deliberate manner, as if you're carefully considering every word that he is saying. If he manages to drive in a sudden suggestion or proposition when he holds your eye, do not answer him until you have taken your eyes away for a minute and regained your positive balance. Then, if your answer is no, look him square in the eye with a positive glance and say your no firmly and deliberately, but of course politely. When in doubt, say no. Keep a sharp lookout for insidious suggestions given at a psychological moment, for there is where much of the danger lies. Let your own active partner be alive to his duties, and do not let the other fellow get in a word with your passive partner. They will want to get a word with each other, but you must put down your active foot on it. The man who is doing the talking, if he understands his business, always in the positive factor in a conversation, whilst the listener is more or less passive. The more intently and earnestly he listens, the more passive he is. The positive is stronger than the negative, and people should always be on their guard to avoid having positive suggestions forced upon them when they are in a negative condition. You should learn to give suggestion in an earnest, firm, positive manner, your voice showing that you expect them to be acted upon, and your mind assuming the belief that such will be the case. If you have not this desirable quality, you should take a few lessons from a good suggester and practice on his subjects. The experience thus gained will be most useful. It is almost impossible to convey in a written lesson the manner and tone of voice best adapted for this purpose, which information I always impart to my personal classes by means of actual experiments under my supervision. If you will form a mental picture of what is implied by the two words confident earnestness, you will be able to grasp the idea I intend to convey when I tell you to make your suggestions in the proper manner. The lesson on concentration will also aid you in this respect. Our next lesson will be devoted to the magnetic gaze. In the next video, it will contain the following lessons where the author is going to talk about the magnetic gaze, active and passive thinking, as well as the projection of thought waves. Good stuff. If you know of anyone that could benefit from these books, these lessons, please share it with them. Hit the like button, let me know you are here, leave a comment, and I'll meet you at the next video. Oh yes, subscribe to the channel.